How to be a successful country. Historically speaking, most countries don't last long. Carving out a little space through revolt or taking advantage of a climactic hiccup is the easy part. But establishing and protecting continuity, far less so. The order changed the rules. Its peace, prosperity, security, and growth prevented the wheels of history from grinding down the upstarts. Near the end of the imperial age in 1920, there were 50 countries. As of 2020, there are over 200. Remove the order, and what has enabled these countries to form, survive, and thrive will fade away. Many assets contribute to national survival and power. These are the big four: viable home territories, a reliable food supply, a sustainable population structure, access to a stable mix of energy inputs. Master these factors and your country is all but doomed for greatness. Fail and your country will excel at the other thing. Territorial viability. Throughout history, the shapes of a country's lands, waterways, borders, and coast have been the single greatest factor in determining whether the country would succeed or fail. The specifics have changed with the technological age. For example, once humans figured out how to sail beyond the horizon, nations tended to get a power up. But the geography's immutable nature hasn't left a lot of wiggle room. It is far easier and cheaper to float items from A to B than to drag or cart them. Water transport is roughly 1/12 the cost of road transport. Countries with naturally navigable rivers tend to have an easier time than those without. In part, it's about money. Cheaper transport enables a local density of economic interchange at rock-bottom costs that otherwise would necessitate a global merchant fleet. In part, it's about cultural and political unification. If it's easy to move around your system, then either that constant interaction makes all your people tolerant of one another and so enables a cultural melding, or it empowers one group to dominate and in time assimilate the others. In part, it's about engineering. The difficulty of building and maintaining roads was so onerous that we didn't transport things even over short distances, even food, until the industrial age brought us asphalt and industrial cement production and the steam and internal combustion engines. In part, it's about continuity. If you can't quickly and easily distribute foodstuffs or generate the capital locally to defend yourself, odds are civilization-burning famines and invasions are within your experience. Plains are the key building blocks for successful countries. Easy to build on and easy to move across. Low development cost land frees capital for other things like roads and education, which in turn lead to more advanced societies. But it's about a lot more than money. With no internal barriers to movement and communication, countries with open interiors find it far easier to achieve political unification. There can be a darker side, too. If it's easy to move goods and people and ideas, it is also easy to move troops. Cultural merging or assimilation is not the only way to unify a territory. Hunting down dissident as minority groups is more straightforward. The American Midwest is a premier example. The Native Americans never had a chance. Similar unification via obliteration unfolded in most of the world's countries with flatlands, most notably in the North China Plain, the Northern European Plain, and the vast open spaces of North Africa and the Middle East. Climate is key. Deserts like the water required for broad-based civilizations, and the level of organization required to control said water, often turns the desert cities into isolated tyrannies. The tropics are great for vacations, but are also great for bugs of both the insectoid and microbial sort, enervating human health and agricultural alike. Seasonality also injects some useful quirks into cultures by providing regular pressures. Planning for the cold, the winter pushes for developments in materials science and construction. Planning for the brief summers necessitates the organization of labor and capital. Planning for the starving season encourages advancements in logistics and mathematics. Spring is when most cultures face food pressures because it will be some time before the harvest comes in. This encourages advancements in logistics and mathematics. It is not that the cultures in non-temperate environments are lazy or less intelligent, but rather that the pressures they face don't encourage the sort of technical advancement associated with stronger and more durable states. Rivers plus plains plus a temperate climate help guarantee a sharp upward technological and economic trajectory. Coastlines. These are fickle things. Most of the world coasts are sloppy or desert or frozen or cliff all right or obscenely tidally variable or otherwise seemingly designed to be death traps. The Portuguese didn't name the Namibian Riviera the gates of hell lightly. The combination of sub-sea geography, reefs, and dangerous current made it a graveyard for galleons and whales alike. But sometimes there's a magic mix of a flattish coastline with access to a flat interior with a deep coastal shelf in a large curved bay, and maybe a river mouth that makes the coast accessible from both land and sea. And that happens, the opportunities for economic activity are explosive. The key issue is distance. The farther away the origin and destination point of trade, the more likely the goods in question are going to vary. If western Iowa and eastern Nebraska trade, there is only so much enthusiasm that can be generated from exchanging different varieties of corn. But if San Francisco and Bordeaux Tree of Life gets considerably more interesting. The global spice trade was the quintessential example of how exoticism, rivers plus plains plus a temperate climate plus an accessible coastline region all but dictate will become a significant economic and military player, able to leverage the benefits of its local geography onto a larger stage. Frontier's external geography is just as important as internal. The gold standard is to have the opposite of what makes a good internal zone. Flat open borders may encourage trade, but they also allow attack. If one of your navigable rivers flows through another country on its way to the sea, your access to the wider world is hostage to the whims of another. Hills and swamps limit contact, but determined invaders can still push through them, and both are just habitable enough to house groups that might resist central rule. Mountains are better, but the best by far are wide, wild oceans. In essence, what you're after is an outer shell firm enough to protect your own continuity, plus a useful interior zone large enough to support internal economies of scale. That magic combo is a precious, rare thing, and one country's tops them all. When it comes to useful flatlands, it's impossible to beat the United States. The Piedmont coastal plain of the East Coast, the Columbia Valley, and California's Central Valley also all score well up in the global rankings. That all these regions teem with navigable river frontage is a bonus. But America's Midwest is a place apart. The Greater Mississippi System includes over 13,000 miles of naturally navigable, interconnected waterways, more than the combined total of all the world's non-American internal river systems, and it almost perfectly overlaps the largest contiguous piece of arable, flat, temperate zone land under a single political authority in the world. The overlap enables American farmers to export their high-bulk products to global markets at lower costs than most countries can shuffle grains about within their own countries. And the ability of Americans to move easily around their own internal systems led to cultural unification with a speed and ease largely unknown in human history. In contrast, the outer crust of the American system is world-class thick. Hundreds of miles of desert and mountains separate the Americans from populated Mexico, while scores of miles of lakes, forests, and mountains keep most of Canada at arm's length. To the west and east, thousands of miles of nearly trackless ocean separates the United States from both the Asian and European landmasses. What tracks there are in those oceans comprise either American territories, Hawaii, Guam, Midway, the Aleutians, Puerto Rico, or are controlled by allies, the United Kingdom, the Azores, Bermuda, the Bahamas. Flat out, the Americans have both the richest territories in the world as well as the most securable.